This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, folks, it's shortly afternoon or thereafter, so if I'd like to call this meeting of the Council on Aging Board of Directors to order. Okay, could we, part of that would be to name the people who are on the call. So I'm Joe Banus, I'm the chair. And Cindy, why don't we go around the table?
Cynthia Terrell, Director, Council on Aging.
Tom Brown.
Papra. Okay. Louise, why don't we start with you?
So put back up the all screen there. So can you?
Is she muted?
She's still muted.
Okay, Louise Jacob, member.
All right, we got you, Louise. Okay, Kathy?
There you go. Kathy's there.
Kathy's there.
That's all you need is Kathy. And Crystal's here.
And Crystal?
Yes.
Hi, Crystal.
Yeah.
And that's...
That's
okay.
Kathy.
Yeah, we're good. Okay. Let me make sure I have the right agenda here. Okay. I guess, has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes from the January meeting?
Yes.
Okay, just give me a thumbs up.
Make a motion to approve minutes. Make a motion to approve.
Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. And they're all thumbs up, I saw.
Okay, everybody.
Yep.
Everybody's good on the minutes for the meeting.
Yeah.
The only thing that gee whiz. All right, bear with me. The only discrepancy I noticed, there was someone named Ducharme, who I think was a visitor, the Cliffview Manor Tenant Association president, and she seems to have two different names, first names. In one place it's Denise, the other place it's Diane, so I'm not sure which name is correct. So I get, if we can get a clarification on that, then we can accept the minutes as amended.
Yeah, Joe, I took that off of the, what was her name on screen when she was speaking?
Mm-hmm.
I think she introduced herself as Denise. I can go back and double check.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's a really minor point, and I even hesitate to bring it up, but, you know, just to make sure that we didn't have twins at that meeting there. Okay, good. All right, public speak, we have one visitor. This is Leslie Kelly, who's Easthampton resident who thought she'd come into the meeting, and she's not a candidate for public speak. I tried to twist her arm, but I was unsuccessful.
No problem.
Nice to see you.
Welcome. Okay, all right, Patrick, what say you from Highland Valley?
We are plugging along over there at Highland Valley. And we meet, I think, next week. So again, I have an opposite by a week or two. So by the time I get here, I forget what was going on over there.
Oh, okay.
So off the top of my head, yes. You might know more than me.
I have a request.
Sure.
I and the Westfield new COA director, Michael Squindo, and possibly others are angling to find an agency to partner with, for the COAs to partner with for the Elder Mental Health Outreach Grant.
Mhm.
That grant is due very soon. And I think every year it comes up.
Okay.
Highland Valley has said no in the past, as have, I think, the other three major mental health agencies.
Okay.
It's a fund that would allow home visits and visits at COAs to patch together mental health services, behavioral health services for seniors in between services covered by insurance. Like if they can't find a therapist or they need some case management, Life Path up in Greenfield has the grant and is doing it.
Okay.
And so we could talk within our own city and within other municipalities about how could we staff it and partner with Highland Valley. But the roadblock is that we need to find a big agency to partner with, and Highland Valley must have their own reasons for why they said no the last times. Yeah. So it would be great if, I don't know if the committee, your committee on your level or somewhere else could find out.
What's the name of what's the grant again? What's it called?
So it's it's from Massachusetts State Elder Affairs through, I think, the Mass Councils on Aging, and it's called the MHOT, Elder Mental Health Outreach Team.
Say it again.
Elder Mental Health Outreach Team grant. And I can send you the information if you want.
Yeah.
And even if there isn't enough time for them to research it for this year,
Down the road.
Michael Squindo wrote a letter to Alan, the executive director at Highland Valley, advising that we are interested in partnering.
No problem.
Great.
No problem.
And then I can also report that we, the COA, the next time the Title III funds are, there's an RFP for those, which is in a year plus. It's September 2025.
Yep.
We will apply. We still have enough funds left from the rolling over funds from that grant in the past to pay for companion driver mileage, but we'd like to apply for funds to replace the one-time grant we got this year for outreach work. So I'm talking with Highland Valley in advance of that to see if the grant seems acceptable.
Isn't that at the end of the year though? Isn't that? Because I'm on that Title III and we just,
I guess it would be a year from this, a year from this May.
Yeah,
I think
we
would be
were meeting must have been over the fall. Yeah, for this year, so it'll probably be the fall. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Like that the grant starts, I think, in September, but maybe the deadline is May before.
Because that makes sense.
Okay. All right.
Cool. Okay. That's Highland Valley. We're good. Moving on. 5 directors report. Cindy. Floor is yours.
Let me grab from you for a minute here. Okay, so I'm giving you a senior tax work-off update. As you saw from the minutes, from the agenda, 13 people returning, 7 new, that's the 20 households. And the final person, the 20th person, I think she's been placed in the school district, but I would have to confirm that. If for some reason that doesn't work out, we might suspend her placement until next year and instead maybe bring on somebody for that 20th spot who could do something else, but we're not sure yet. Just to refine what we talked about here a couple of months ago. So we figured out a way so that every year there can be some new people and there can be some people finishing up their 2 years. But if we get somebody who is eligible and they were chosen through that lottery or they're returning for their second year and there's no appropriate placement for them, either because what was appropriate was already taken up by other people or whatever, I spoke with the assessor about, we could just suspend the rest of their placement. And then I could keep in mind this person's abilities and skills. So then the next application period, I could put them as a priority for, say, the art gallery, if they need something that is, a little bit more relaxed than cleaning medical equipment.
Right.
So as long as the board has no issue with that, I don't think we need to discuss it. Questions?
Sounds good.
Okay. And then,
This was the for today's meeting,
Oh, this is in the minutes. I'm sorry. I'm cribbing from Joe's minutes, not his agenda.
now we have the agenda. Just,
I told you all that last time, guys. Okay, fiscal report for 6 months.
We
I'm
still
gonna
like
share
it.
my screen. See, this is what happens when you take a few days off, although I did prepare for today. Okay. All right, let's share the screen here. Find the Google Meet.
That's how the teacher used to catch us. We were cheating off the wrong paper.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
we're all human.
we're all
I
here.
gave that test last week.
Right.
All right, let me rotate the document. For those of you who are not here. Okay, share this tab instead. Now we can rotate. Okay, so what you're seeing here are the first 6 months of our expenses from city appropriations. If you look below, I have written a little crib sheet of notes. So 511 line, the first line, 511 is the director. Expenses are typical for this point in the year. We're a little bit more than halfway spent as of the end of January.
Mhm.
This is the end of January, sorry. 5112 is the outreach coordinator and the program manager. Same, expenses are typical. And just so you recall, the reason why that line, let me go back up there, is higher than, so $20,000 is coming to that line from the formula grant. So the city's not actually paying that full, in the third column, $90,000. They're paying 70-something thousand dollars.
Some lesser amount.
Okay, and then, sorry, I'm just looking at the battery. I'm gonna plug this in a few minutes. What were you gonna say, Joe?
No, it seems to me, when I look at the last column on the right,
Mhm.
percent expenditure balance, everything, there are two at the very end that
Mhm.
appear to be somewhat lower than
Yep, and that
50%, and
that
I
is
know you're
in-
gonna get to that.
I will get to that. The office aid wage on this is fully on city appropriations. That was actually a mistake that got made between me and City Hall. 4,000 of that, our office aid, the morning receptionist, comes from the formula grant. Instead, they put it onto the principal clerk, but it's there.
Mhm.
The grant is supplementing the city by $4,000. It's just in a different line. And then the outreach worker 5118, that's where you see the 36% spent down instead of, 50 something. That's because it's an unbenefited position with significant absences, vacations. We have to budget 52 weeks a year for that position. So,
Does that position usually work 52 weeks, or do they work somewhat less?
well, this is the thing. So just so everybody in the community understands, even if I know ahead of time, this person is going to take 2 weeks of vacation, I don't know how much they're going to be sick. And we have to build the budget for 52 weeks a year.
Yep.
Now,
Okay. Full budget for
thankfully, that
full-time.
gives us a little bit of a cushion in case the office aide works more, which often happens that the office aide works more, but we'll see. So
Mhm.
yes,
Okay,
at the end, there is the risk, just like when you don't fill a position in a timely way, that some of the funds from salary will go to free cash,
Yep.
which is not a terrible thing. And we're a very
It's a
small
fact of life,
department
yeah.
overall, but it could happen. Part-time van drivers, 5119, again, a little bit underspent. We experienced this summer such a dip in, medical rides and many cancellations, and something was going on consistently with the healthcare system. We don't know. Also, we hired a new driver for part of the hours who was paid at a lower starting step.
Mhm.
So we're saving a little bit in the part-time drivers, and we put in almost $4,000 from the formula grant that we didn't need to. And I'll get to that in my next section.
Sure.
Building and equipment repair, we were given $1,000 in the mayor's budget in case DPW didn't have enough money to do something like, we've got a get some professional and technical services like electrical or something like that.
Mhm.
So, we do have, expenses that we can apply to that. We will by the end of the year.
Okay,
And then, and the mileage, we haven't touched the mileage yet, but we will. So that we're on track, we think, probably to send some back to free cash from salary, but that was expected.
Cindy, just to clarify, that
Yeah.
$1,000 you were talking about.
Yeah.
Appears to be in the encumbered column, showing nothing available.
That's because we have a purchase order out to buy cleaning equipment. I think it's a vacuum, but actually I'm gonna cancel that because we have a project going on that's far more expensive in the professional services than we thought, and that's the priority.
Okay.
So we're
Okay.
gonna probably do that. That's why you see it in encumbered.
Okay. perfect.
Yes, exactly.
so
all right.
encumbered's another way to say the money's been obligated.
Right, I just thought I heard
Yes.
Cindy say that it was plugged there just in case, but nothing had been
Not
spent
spent,
yet from it.
not
Yeah.
spent, but there's a
Not spent, but
purchase order
encumbered.
with the business.
And just back to Joe's
But
original,
That can be canceled, so the money can be de-obligated.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
and again, back to Joe's original point, Cindy,
Mhm.
if you go to the bottom line, the total, when you see 52%,
Mhm.
we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And if that was 30 or if that was 70,
Mhm.
we'd be getting nervous. Why is it 30? And
Yeah, there's
Right.
some weird stuff.
Or
going
why is
on,
it 70, but it's 52%, that's perfect.
Right,
Yeah, that's-
right. Great. Okay, so we're
no
going
fire ones
to
here.
Right.
we're gonna ask, Joe, can you ask if there are any other questions on this section before I move to grants?
Okay, any folks have any further questions here? Okay,
Okay, so
moving on to
I'm
grants.
gonna move on to the grants. All right, and I'm gonna go to, okay. So now what you see here, and let me see if I can make
Good
this
opportunity.
in big in
Actually, in the
this.
private sector.
Well,
I went down last
that's
Thursday.
okay.
I just.
All right, so what you see here is, we got side conversation going on. Punish them, please.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
You were in between. You were still looking for something.
No, we're prepared to proceed. So.
all right, okay. So the formula grant, which again, for the community to understand, is the state funding that every council on aging gets at $14 per senior, which was revised with the new census numbers so that it went to $66,892 for the first time ever. That's this FY24. We expect we'll get the same amount in FY25. However, there are people lobbying for $15 per senior. But we don't know if that will happen. So figuring that this is the amount we have, plus we had rolled over from FY23 about $13,000. It's good, again, with this grant to roll over funds for when you need to do a bigger project or
Mhm.
maybe seed a new position until the city can take more of it over. So I'll explain that as we go. So for this year, as you see there, City Council approved moving 27.5 over from the grant way back in July at the beginning of the fiscal year to supplement salaries and wages. And then and in FY25, we project, like I said earlier, we didn't need to put in money for the drivers. So it'll just go back to the 24,000 it always was
Mhm.
since we made the program manager position and the office aide. All right, so moving down here, we use some of the funds for fitness activity instruction. And we're projected to spend about 7,000 by the end of the year. And next year, I project we need probably about $10,000 because some of our classes we may have to replace with non-YMCA instructors. The YMCA is incredibly cheap and regular instructors are twice that cost. If people want to have, say, line dancing, something like that, it's not going to be $35. It's going to be like $75 a class. And moving on, our activity, instruction was less than I thought it would be, and I thought through why that was. really, it's that we had a lot of volunteers bringing their skills in and doing some instruction, but that takes a ton of organizing and staff time for the staff to actually be their co-instructor. And
Yep,
then,
Do the support, yeah.
yeah, and then cultural council funding came into at least one art instructor. And let me just talk about this for a minute. My plan is that when our outreach part-time worker retires in April of 2025, so basically in a year, our outreach coordinator, full-time at 35 hours, will be fully up to speed on shine counseling, other kinds of benefits counseling, and also has other skills that she brings to the position. I think we're, as I've been saying, overstaffed for outreach, way understaffed for activities, because now we have a program manager, not an activity coordinator. So for the program manager to do the program managing and the activity coordinating at the same time is really, really stressful on the organization and on that human. At the same time, we have no volunteer coordinator at all except me. Although people try to pitch in and help, and that includes senior tax work-off. I think where we should go to look more like other centers and to have life be saner is that when that outreach coordinator retires, we should create a position somewhere between 25 and 35 hours a week. So this would now be a benefited and unionized position that we co-share the wage with the city off this formula grant, at least at the beginning, because we're rolling over some funds every year. We could seed that position and make it an activity coordinator at grade B, the same grade it is now as the outreach worker assistant and volunteer coordinator. These were all positions we've had in the past, but we got rid of some of them during the pandemic. And so for us to grow, for us to move someday, for us to do projects, needs assessments, program evaluation, we need me and the program manager to do that work rather than all this volunteer coordinating, rather than on her part, direct instruction and logistics workings. So that would be my short to medium term plan. So I'd be coming back to you after we've expended everything this year and we have our budget really built for next year. We're in the middle of building the budget for next year, and we could sit down and really talk about what would it cost to make that switch in April of 2025 or somewhere around there, July 2026. And so what would it cost? How much could we bear of that cost through this formula grant? Add that to what's going into it from the city already for the outreach worker assistant. But really, it's going to take a lot of advocacy if you agree with me, which I don't know if you will, but if you do, it's going to take a lot of advocacy because HR, they have to take on another benefited position, even if it's only 20 hours per week.
So, Joe, so the last time you did something with a position, either created a new one or made a change.
Principal clerk.
What was that process? Was it, I mean, obviously you explained to the board, then did you get buy-in from the mayor?
Mhm.
Then it went to the city council?
Well, first, I really, when I first came here and I went over, here's all our positions and here's the positions we've ever had and here's our needs. First, I got HR's buy-in.
Okay,
They looked at that and saw the need for a principal clerk full-time and agreed also that it's very hard to staff our building with many, many, many part-time unbenefited people. We don't even have the physical space. Like I can't have an outreach worker assistant and add another under 20-hour a week activity person because I don't physically have the space in the building.
Where are you going to put them?
Exactly. So they really have to be that same
Yeah.
human.
so would this process take that same route? Once you've sold it to us, would you go to HR to get
Yeah.
their buy-in?
Yes, I've been talking about it as a possibility. I think talking about it from the perspective of, can we take a position that's under 20 hours and make it at least 20 hours plus and add benefits to it is a no-go. But I think being able to advocate for what are the needs of the senior center to serve the seniors in town.
Population, yeah.
And not only serve them at our center, but to go out to housing complexes and serve people in community rooms, to really use the whole community to offer services is going to take more hours.
So why was it a no-go before and you would expect it to go through this time?
I think it's worth a try is what I can say. I think it's hard to put more people on benefits. This year, health insurance is going up.
Right.
Hopefully it won't go up again much though the following year. So this would be a hard year to do it. So I'm hoping that once that's absorbed, as long as there isn't another big jump in the following year,
So,
I don't know.
so other than our support, as you said, assuming we do that next meeting, other than our support, it's difficult for this group to advocate to HR. That's one department.
It's the next step.
It's a lot easier for us to advocate to the mayor and the city council because those are
There you
public
go.
positions.
Yeah.
That's right. So it would be the next steps.
Okay.
So and I've never had the experience of having an idea that HR didn't like and then going to
Right.
the mayor and city council.
Right.
So, so that could happen though someday, I just haven't had that experience.
Okay.
So I'll move on, but that is, as we go through and you see, oh, why isn't she spending the whole 66,000? Part of it is a transition. It's more work actually to spend money on fitness, art, field trips, professional development, like everything this grant goes for.
Mhm.
That means there's operations work that has to happen to develop more programming. So it's going to be a transition moving from the 40-something thousand into the 60s thousands. And in some ways, so then what would we do if we were spending more of this grant on salary to supplement that grade B activity / volunteer person? How would we then pay for instructors, for example? If we couldn't do both with the grant, well, then we would go back to our fitness account and our transportation accounts, those revolving accounts where we're taking in fees, could support, again, as they did in the past, some of the transportation, say field trips, some of the instruction they did in the past, but I lifted that off those accounts those fees go into and put it on the grant because we had the money in the grant and we wanted to save money in those two accounts, fitness and transportation, for some expenses that were coming up, like buying new fitness equipment or getting a new van and having to sticker it. But those aren't every year expenses.
Right.
So what some directors do is they roll with things from year to year and make different plans for these different accounts from year to year based on needs and based on strategy.
Right.
So, okay, so going through, and we're not doing the revolving accounts today because that would be too much. We'll do that. We can do that next
And
time.
there'll be a test in a couple of weeks.
And this I can
I'll be cheating
share
off
with
the
people. I just didn't have time to print it out before I left. So going back to the art instruction, the fact that we're going to maybe spend 5,000 on it next year and we're going to spend maybe 3,000 on it this year hides the fact that our program manager is directly delivering a significant amount of art instruction, just like with fitness and field trips. She's doing that as well. Musicians and speakers, the formula grant and the Friends, both put in for that. And we could do more. We only do a certain amount. When we have performances, it's comfortable in our space to say do about 35 people. In the past, they would do like a meal that maybe the Friends would cook and they would, or the staff would cook, and they would cram everybody in there and have a concert and maybe do 75 people. But we're doing things a little differently these days, as we've said before. And memberships and training, we had budgeted 6,000 for this year. Some people didn't go to the conference and spend the money that they were going to spend the annual conference, but next year people will. We kept keeping that the same. Furniture, furnishings, equipment. We've spent we'll have spent almost $20,000 by the end of the year. And I'm only budgeting about 10,000 for next year because we bought the hybrid TV. We are buying some furniture. We swapped out the reception station. Like, we did some big things this year because we could.
But the expenses aren't of the nature where they're regular every year. It's sort of
Exactly.
like you spend a bigger chunk in one year and then you can go a couple of
Right.
years. Yeah.
And in the past, they could not do this because the formula grant was significantly smaller. But also we were inspired to make some improvements because we got that $30,000 earmark for furniture because we were going to move maybe to the Manchester hardware and we didn't.
Mhm.
So the fact that we bought some new chairs and tables, meant that it made sense if we were going to put in some improvements now in the furniture, that we should do as much of it all at once as we can. Otherwise, it's a patchwork of terrible old furnishings and equipment and furniture and a mix of new. And so we're trying to help people feel better about this old space that is imperfect in so many ways by having some more modern technology and comfortable furnishings. I mean, I've got soft seating in that building right now that is so inappropriate for seniors. And if I can replace it even 2 comfortable chairs at a time, those are expensive. I will, because we're going to be there for maybe 5-10 more years. Moving down. So of that $66,000 grant, I'm thinking that we're going to spend about 62,000 of it this year, and then about maybe 60,000 of it next year. And like I said, we're rolling over 13,000 from last year. So maybe by FY26, we will have rolled over, let's just say $20,000 to $25,000. And to me, that could be the seed money for that new activity coordinator / volunteer coordinator grade B position. I mean, there could be other strategies. So that's just a draft idea. What time? It's okay. Okay. So the final 2 grants, you already know that we got a couple little grants that we fully expended and we already reported on those. I don't have those today. The outreach grant that I keep talking about, where we're taking people out to lunch and we're having meet and greet events and so on, so that people can have more citizen engagement and more engagement with outreach. That's about just over a $10,000 grant. And I'm just going to go down here to the bottom line since we're running out. I'm projecting that we will spend the full grant. We've got a bunch of activities we'll be doing, and I'll report on that next time, what we're doing and how that's going program wise. And then that Highland Valley Title III grant rollover funds that we have of just over $20,000 that had rolled over. We've been chipping away at that every year because there's nothing else that pays for volunteers mileage. There's nothing else.
I'm sorry,
There's nothing else that pays for volunteer mileage to drive people to appointments, and we're spending this year about $3,700, and I project about $5,000 next year because federal mileage just went up. And also we've got more drivers now because we have senior tax work-off drivers. So that's where we're at with those grants. Are there any questions, not on what we're doing with the grants, the program side, but just the expenses in general? Okay.
you're not doing anything. I mean, I haven't heard you say that you're doing anything unusual or stuff that you haven't done in prior years.
Correct. With the grants, correct. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing this. And so we're gonna move on to transportation. So this is just a statement. If people want to come to Council on Aging activities in the afternoon where typically your pickup time to go home would be after transportation is done for the day and the driver has gone home. We've been trying to figure out how to solve that problem. Wednesdays are a very popular day for people to come in and want to ride home. So what I've done is that our new driver, it's not his regular day, but if we have people who want to go home from the afternoon activities, he'll come in and do that afternoon transportation with enough notice. So I want the community to know that if you're going to be a regular at our afternoon activities, or it's just a one-off, please let us know a week ahead of time that you're going to be coming, you want to ride home, because I need to give him a heads up. It's a little unusual, but our last in-town appointment is 2 p.m. If you want to go home at 3 or 3:30, we need to know ahead of time. Or even if you just want to come in and use the fitness center later in the afternoon, really anything you want to do at the senior center. And if you have an in-town medical or other appointment that's later than we typically allow after 2 p.m., please call us and let us know. We'll see if we can fit you in without getting back to the position where every day we would flex our driver schedules right up until sometimes 4 p.m. That's not a good practice to do every day. It could get us over budget. It could mean that the vans are pulling in and the staff has gone home. We don't want that. But we can do a few appointments, not like a 2-hour, eye dilation, but we could run somebody over to Valley Medical at 2:30 and get them home by 3:30 potentially, or 4. So just try us and we'll see how we can help in the afternoon. And then durable medical equipment. So this is the final part of the director report. We, since I've gotten here, have had this beloved durable medical equipment, which means walkers, canes, rollators, wheelchairs program. I've seen how much work it is. And I've also seen that the sheriff's department makes home deliveries of the same equipment. We hired senior task work off to help because the equipment was filthy. Even if we would clean it, it would get all dirty in the basement where it's stored. We bought plastic to top the equipment so it wouldn't get dusty again. That's that. And we have a new senior task work off person who's working on the equipment. My plan, and I've gone over this with the sheriff's department, is to transition after this year, unless, people have other ideas, and I'm open to hearing them, to transition to having the sheriff's department hold all of our equipment and be the sole provider besides the re-equipment, which is another service that comes through Stavros. The nearest delivery point is Stavros and Amherst. And especially that's for bigger equipment like electric wheelchairs or scooters. But for the regular old medical equipment, people can get the exact same service through the sheriff's department. They're already set up for it. They want it. And it's home delivery. And that would free up space in our basement. It would make it easier for public safety in our basement to not have all that equipment in the way. The basement is musty and gross, and we're lucky that we get anybody who's willing to go down there and work on the equipment. So does anybody have any questions about that plan or concerns about that?
Louise does.
I do.
Louise, you're recognized.
Thank you. When you say the sheriff's department, what is that?
Okay, there is a program called Triad, which is Councils on Aging, the Hampshire Sheriff's Department, and Public Safety, all working together to meet the needs of seniors in town. And the projects that come out of that are medical equipment loans, sand for seniors, lock boxes on houses. Even if you say, well, the police department put that lockbox on my house, or the senior center made sure I got my sand, or the sheriff delivered the medical equipment and it's the medical equipment in their department. Yes, people have pieces of this, but they all work together to assess the needs and implement these programs. And so that's what Triad is. The Triad office has its own staff, a deputy sheriff and other staff that work on these projects. And they're the ones who run their own medical equipment program from within the sheriff's department.
I mean, this is, oops, go ahead, Louise.
Yeah. Okay. taking me as a senior, and I've used it once, where do I go? If I had another operation I want, because a lot of people, yeah,
So you would call that phone number of the direct number for the Triad department at the sheriff's office, and you would make your request, and they would deliver it to your home. And they would have more equipment because we would be giving them all of our, almost all of our equipment. We would keep a little bit of equipment in case somebody came to the center and just had an immediate need, you know.
I mean, this is all consistent with partnering, right? These
Yes.
guys, it's sort of like they're maybe a little more of a specialty for them, you know, so they're prepared to help and do the work and they can get it done more efficiently.
And senior center after senior center is giving up their program. Northampton did it. There are other towns that have done it. And the
Sure.
reason is
Best practices.
you're really not staffed to clean and maintain it. And also people want that home delivery piece. Yeah.
Crystal?
Crystal, you're recognized.
Okay, sorry for the delay. We use the sheriff program here at Christopher Heights. Our residents are able to call the Triad number and they come to Christopher Heights with clean, working, serviced equipment. And if the seniors, residents in our community have any issues with the equipment, so say the brakes don't work, the sheriff's department will come back and they'll replace it with a working walker that both of the brakes work. So it's a fabulous program. They've actually taken all of our medical equipment that we had on hand at Christopher Heights, and they took it back to the Triad at the Hampshire Corrections, and they have the inmates that are trained by these bike organizations where they have they do bike repairs and they teach them how to repair the different medical equipment, and it's absolutely takes the liability off of the organization as far as Christopher Heights or the senior center.
Oh, Louise, you're seeking recognition. Go ahead.
yeah, yes, because that's an established community. My concern is there's a lot of knowledge in Easthampton as a whole. When I had the operation, it was like, where do I get this? And how do we get that word out? I mean, people who don't live in senior housing are not part of a community like that, but being seniors are more likely to need such equipment.
So I'm assuming, just to follow up on Louise's question, I'm assuming people would still call the senior center and you're still you're still gonna be able to direct them to Triad now. So that's gonna be the overall goal, is to continue to funnel the request for information to where it needs to go, right? I
Yes,
think that answers your question, Louise.
absolutely. And over time, it might take 5 years, but people will get used to calling
Yeah,
the Triad office
office,
over time, whereas now they're used to, they just walk in and,
Right.
We have
Get the equipment.
they get the equipment. And, as Crystal said, the liability issue, we've tried to fix certain things. Like, when I came on board, we were sending commode buckets back out after they had been wiped down, and we don't even have water to do that. We're just talking wipes. And so now we buy new commode buckets for every borrowing. The Helping Hands Society has donated money to the senior center to buy new rollators and other equipment. We've gotten other grants to buy equipment, but eventually, in a few years, that more equipment will need to be replaced. There isn't a steady stream of funding for this program at all, so it really is a constant. It takes a lot of attention, and I'm not sure that the service we deliver for all that attention of the staff, for the donations that we get, and people's, I'm not sure that the program is as robust as it could be.
Joe, just one comment on it. I mean, like a lot of things, it makes perfect sense to have this centralized rather than have 15 locations in Hampshire County where I could go to get equipment. There's one centralized location. And to Pat's point about calling and us referring a number, I'm assuming we might also put a blurb in the newsletter that says, here's the number you need to call going forward. And eventually those calls just keep going down, and come to you.
But I also want to say that I should have raised my hand.
No, go ahead.
Oh, actually, it's my report. I also want to say we welcome those calls. We want people to call us because when we're talking to you, we're going to hear about, well, what's going on with you?
Right.
You know, and then we can
It's an
direct.
opportunity
I
to
mean,
gather information.
Yeah, I wish that you could see what it's like with the current staff that I have, that, the amount of service that is provided with every call, whether it's me, because I'm a social worker, but whether it's the other staff, whether it's the office aide, whether it's the volunteers, we go off topic and it's good. And so we want those calls.
Yeah.
There's no problem with calling.
Yeah, and I also know like the local, so I know we say the sheriffs, but just be aware, it's also the local police departments. Like Easthampton has several officers that work in that group. Southampton has officers that work with that group.
With Triad?
With Triad, yeah, they're like, that are assigned essentially to help with those things, so.
One more thing about Triad. In the past, pre-pandemic, there were monthly meetings that included representatives from the senior community. And those meetings are going to be starting up again. It's taking a lot to try to get them going again, but the sheriff's department has said yes, and so I'm not sure how often we'll meet, but I will announce in the newsletter when we are accepting seniors, people 55 plus or 60 plus, I'm not sure which, who want to join that Triad committee, because then they can help identify what are the needs.
Right.
Because there's other things that we might not be doing besides, all those traditional things.
And those, back to the police officers for a minute, like they're, we go back to how we're going to get the word out to make sure that, that people know to call Triad. The officers that are dealing with folks on a daily basis, they're going to let them know, hey, this is where you got to go as well. They'll be helping kind of facilitate that piece.
Okay.
Question.
So we have
For
Louise.
people who, thank you. For people who, what's I going to say? Who aren't part of it, any of those organized things. For example, are those officers' names going to be made public so that if you were, wanted help, if you phoned the police station, you would know who you were asking for?
I think if you, and I don't want to speak for the police department, but I know, but I know that they have, I think it's Sergeant Alexander, Eric Alexander is he used to be the elderly affairs officer.
It's now Matt Rude.
It is, okay, so exactly, so I don't want to speak to them, but all you have to do is, if you call the police department and ask them you want to speak to the elder affairs officer, they would put you in contact with that person, I'm sure.
Okay, so you're asking for the elder affairs officer. You're not asking for the triad officer.
No.
Triad.
Correct. Although they might still direct you, if you said that, it's a good chance they're going to direct you to him anyway, because they're all pretty aware, I think.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we've got maybe one or two more items that we need to touch on, and that number 6, new business, a picnic at the park. Cindy?
Okay.
It's all yours.
So I'd like the board to get involved in a maybe the start of having an annual senior picnic in town. So this outreach grant that we're getting, one of the things we said we would do is to help seniors meet their city government. And we've done a little bit of that. Public safety, Board of Health. There isn't a lot of time left in the year. And we thought, what if we went to the park and and invited everybody in city government, city council, boards and committees, departments
Yeah.
to come and, as well as seniors, and have a meal together outside at the park at one of the bigger pavilions, which the Parks Department has already said yes to helping with. Had a maybe some kind of performance, and also just time to kind of meet and greet their city government. I don't know if we've ever done that. I think there's something like 150 people on boards, committees, city council, includes the staff at City Hall and the other buildings who are not part of those boards and committees. I wrote to the city council president about the idea and I haven't heard back, but I wanted the board to know about this idea. I'm thinking about Friday, May 31st, when the weather is nice and away from the Memorial Day holiday. We would get a caterer and have some sort of food option. Maybe we could do it for, say, 200, 250 people total. Wanted to know what you thought of the idea and whether we wanted to set up a committee of this board to work with our staff to actually plan this, have the board physically help with the event, think about maybe what would be on the agenda, talk with other boards and committees, maybe shop it around and actually go, get it on city council agenda or during public speak. What do you think of this idea? We could also keep it much smaller scale and do something else, but we do have the money through that grant to at least pay for a certain amount of catering and maybe even performance as well.
Tom?
I think it's a great idea. I think I wouldn't be worried about how many people you'd be inviting, because my experience is about half would show. So if you're going to invite 300 people, you might get 150 there, which is great. I'd be a little careful about an agenda. I remember years ago when the bank used to do a business reception, and 300 people would show up and they're all talking in their groups and they're mingling and having a great time, and then you rap on the glass because you want everybody's attention, and you kill the mood, if you will, while you're presenting whatever it is they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And as opposed to all of those great conversations that are going on throughout. So I'd be careful about an agenda, as opposed to the agenda is meet and greet, talk, pass around the room, do whatever, but there's no formal presentations other than maybe a welcome, and we'd like you to enjoy the afternoon, assuming it's an evening, whatever. We'd like you to enjoy that and have at it, so you can converse with your city council, your school committee, your other committees and boards in the town.
It occurs, I'm going to grab a minute for myself.
Recognize yourself.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of it sounds really good in terms of creating a forum for people to talk, albeit informally, about, the new building, the ad hoc building committee or something like that. The whole thing about, the need for a facility where we can sort of take some of these activities up a notch. And it'd be an opportunity to just sort of like hit people informally, even if we had like maybe a poster and a table or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it would seem to be the kind of an opportunity for data collection that, you wouldn't want to miss out on.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm talking about killing the conversation.
Oh, yeah, no. That's why I said maybe putting up a poster or two posters or something, as opposed to, now we're going to give you a 20-minute PowerPoint presentation, and everybody flip the chart number one.
And the only other thing you might add to that group of invitees might be department heads, might be police and fire, because it doesn't hurt to have them in the crowd too.
Sure. Sure.
Please.
Got a hand up.
Yeah.
Louise, you're up.
Yes. I would suggest name tags for everyone, and depending how many, and I mean, it's a great idea.
I don't want to say.
If it's Friday though, are you going to get staff from the council? Isn't that their day off?
The council meeting works on Fridays.
So, yeah,
Sorry?
she said they work on Fridays. The council on aging does. I was just gonna say the date, I know that there's another event. I know that there's an event going on that day that may interfere is what all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna name the
Okay.
event right out loud here, but I know there's another event. So maybe I love the idea. I really love the idea of the whole thing.
Reschedule to a different day?
Yeah, maybe a different day might be better, but again, you gotta figure out what works for everybody. And again, I think like Louise is saying, if you have, like, if the departments, not all the departments are open on Friday, so
Right.
you're gonna make them come in on a day that they're not necessarily working versus having it on, and I think you have the opportunity. It's a senior day event kind of, so you could really do this on any given day almost, of the week, and still get a pretty good turnout of, seniors as well as staff from the city to attend.
So before we have to close for the day though, I want to pull the Council on Aging, the board, to find out who would be willing to help, because I already know that my staff are tapped out. So it's really going to be me planning this, and I could definitely use some help. Staff can do certain pieces, but yeah.
I'm more than willing to try and help you with this a little bit. My only issue is in May in particular, I'm gone for 12 days on a trip.
Okay.
So that's gonna not be helpful. But in between there, I'd be more than happy to try and assist you the best I can.
And I could do, whatever, multiple as long as it's outside of an election season, so we're good.
Anybody else interested in helping?
Louise is.
Louise, here.
I'm willing to help. Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's not like you have to speak now or forever hold your peace either.
Right.
So,
We got some time.
Let us know what you need.
Yeah, let us know what you need.
Yep.
I think we figure out a date first and then kind of backtrack together.
okay, I think we're about
Yeah.
at the end of the,
Sorry, Joe, one
Yes.
quick thing. In addition to that, getting away from that Friday because people want to be working, sometimes a midweek thing isn't bad. Because Fridays could be, okay, I'm getting away for the weekend. I'm going, not just because
With
it's
family,
Memorial Day,
right,
but
yeah.
any family thing. A midweek thing, Wednesday, you got to go to work tomorrow. People are here. Sometimes a Wednesday, I don't know if you were thinking afternoon or evening or late afternoon, but a Wednesday sometimes is a great day to do it.
Yep, we were thinking about a lunch and staying away from our, busy days at the senior center, but we could also, cancel some activities. Because we would really have to close during those
Yeah.
hours, so we could all
Absolutely.
go over to the park, which is another argument for Sunday having a facility that has outdoor
Right.
capacity for
Yeah.
events.
Yeah.
All right. So
Okay.
so the last item we're gonna move.
that's correct. Yeah, we'll cover that later. At this point, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tom moves,
Second?
Second,
Louise, second.
or Louise,
Second.
Louise. You get to second that one.
All in favor?
Everyone in favor, raise your hand. And one way or another. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you.
Thanks, folks.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.